The Sword Beneath the River. A gentle bedtime story, inspired by an ancient Chinese tale. Good evening, dear listener. Tonight let us travel far away to an ancient time in China when rivers were wide and quiet, when wooden boats drifted under silver moonlight, and when people listened carefully to the sound of wind moving through bamboo leaves. This is a story about a man, a sword, and a river. It is also a story about learning to let go of old thinking and learning to see the world as it truly is. Long, long ago, there was a small village beside a great river. The river was deep and wide, and it moved slowly through the land like a long ribbon of blue silk. In the morning, the river shone with golden light. At night, it reflected the moon and stars. The people in the village loved the river. It gave them fish to eat, water for their fields, and a path to travel from one town to another. Every day, wooden boats crossed the river, carrying farmers, merchants, students, and travelers. In this village lived a young man named Liang. Liang was not a bad person. He was honest, quiet, and simple-hearted. But he had one problem. He did not like to change his mind. Once he believed something, he held on to it very tightly, like a child holding a favorite toy. Liang had a sword that he loved very much. It was not a magical sword, and it did not belong to a great warrior. But to Liang it was precious. His father had given it to him many years before. "My son," his father had said, "this sword is not only a tool, it is a reminder. Carry it with care. Use your mind before you use your strength." Liang remembered those words, but he did not always understand them. One autumn morning, Liang needed to travel across the river to visit a market in another town. The air was cool, and the sky was pale blue. A soft wind touched the surface of the water, making little waves that sparkled in the sunlight. Liang wrapped his coat around himself, tied his sword at his waist, and walked to the riverbank. A boatman was waiting beside a small wooden boat. "Good morning," said the boatman. "Are you crossing the river today?" "Yes," Liang replied. "I am going to the market." "Then come aboard," said the boatman kindly. Liang stepped into the boat. A few other travelers were already sitting inside. There was an old woman carrying a basket of vegetables, a father with his young daughter, and a scholar holding a bundle of books. The boatman pushed the boat away from the shore. Slowly the boat began to move across the water. The river was peaceful that day. The boat floated gently, rocking from side to side. The old woman closed her eyes and rested. The little girl leaned over the side of the boat and watched the tiny waves. The scholar opened one of his books and read quietly. Liang sat near the edge of the boat. He looked down at the water and felt proud of the sword at his waist. He touched the handle softly and thought of his father. But then something unexpected happened. The boat passed over a patch of rough water. It rocked harder than before. Liang, surprised, reached out to steady himself, but as he moved, his sword slipped from his belt. Before he could catch it, the sword fell. There was a quick flash of metal in the sunlight. Then, splash. The sword disappeared into the river. Liang jumped up. "My sword!" he cried. The other travelers turned to look. The little girl gasped. The old woman opened her eyes. The scholar lowered his book. Liang stared into the water, but the sword was gone. Only circles of ripples spread across the river. "My sword fell into the river," Liang said anxiously. The boatman looked over the side. "I am sorry," he said. "The river is deep here." Liang's face became pale. "We must stop the boat." The boatman shook his head gently. "The current is moving. If we stop, it will not help. The sword has already sunk." Liang did not listen. He quickly took out a small knife from his bag. Then he bent down and carved a mark on the side of the wooden boat. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The others watched him in surprise. The scholar asked, "What are you doing?" Liang pointed to the mark. "This is where my sword fell into the water. I am marking the boat. When we reach the other side, I will jump into the river from this spot and find my sword." For a moment no one said anything. Then the old woman sighed softly. The scholar looked at Liang with kind but puzzled eyes. The boatman continued rowing. The little girl whispered to her father, "But the boat is moving." Her father gently nodded. "Yes, child, the boat is moving." Liang heard them, but he did not understand. He sat beside the mark he had carved. He watched it carefully, as if the mark itself could protect his lost sword. The boat continued across the river. The water moved beneath them. The wind moved above them. The boat moved forward. But Liang's thoughts stayed in one place. He kept thinking, "My sword fell here. I marked the place. I will find it later." The scholar closed his book and spoke gently. "Friend," he said, "may I ask you something?" Liang looked at him. "Yes." "When your sword fell, was the boat still moving?" "Yes," Liang replied. "And is the river still moving?" "Yes." "Then do you think the sword is still under this mark on the boat?" Liang frowned. "Of course. This is where it fell." The scholar smiled sadly. "This is where it fell from the boat. But the boat has moved. The river has moved. The sword has sunk in another place." Liang shook his head. "No, I marked the exact spot." The scholar did not argue. He only looked out over the river. Sometimes, when a person is not ready to understand, words cannot enter the heart. The boat reached the other side of the river. The boatman tied the boat to a wooden post. The travelers stepped out one by one. The old woman carried her vegetables away. The father took his daughter's hand. The scholar picked up his books. Liang stood up quickly. He pointed to the mark on the boat and said, "Here, this is the place." Then, before anyone could stop him, he jumped into the water beside the boat. Splash. The river was cold. Liang searched beneath the water. He reached down with his hands. He kicked his feet. He opened his eyes, but the water was dark and unclear. He found stones. He found mud. He found river plants moving slowly with the current. But he did not find his sword. He came back up, gasping for air. The boatman helped him climb out of the river. Liang was wet from head to toe. His hair dripped water onto his face. His clothes were heavy and cold. "My sword is not there," Liang said in confusion. The scholar spoke softly. "Your sword fell into the river far behind us. The mark on the boat moved with the boat, but the sword did not move with the boat." Liang looked at the carved mark. For the first time he really saw it. It was only a mark on wood. It was not the place where the sword had fallen. It was not the bottom of the river. It was not the truth. Liang sat down on the riverbank. He felt embarrassed. He felt sad. He also felt a little foolish. The little girl walked over to him. In her small hand she held a dry cloth. "Here," she said. "You are cold." Liang took the cloth. "Thank you." The girl looked at him with innocent eyes. "My father says the river is always changing. Maybe next time you can look at the river, not just the boat." Liang looked at her. The words were simple, but they touched his heart. Look at the river, not just the boat. That evening, Liang did not go to the market. He returned home slowly without his sword. The sky turned orange, then purple, then deep blue. Birds flew back to their nests. Smoke rose from village kitchens. The first stars appeared above the rooftops. Liang sat outside his home and thought about what had happened. He remembered his father's words. "Use your mind before you use your strength." Liang had jumped into the river. He had used strength, but he had not used wisdom. He had held on to one idea so tightly that he could not see reality moving around him. The next morning, Liang went back to the riverbank. He stood quietly and watched the water. The river looked peaceful, but it was never still. Every moment it changed. Every wave was new. Every reflection came and went. Liang understood something important. Life is like a river. People change. Situations change. The world moves forward. If we only remember where something used to be, we may lose sight of where it is now. From that day on, Liang became a more thoughtful person. When problems came, he did not rush to answer them with old ideas. He paused. He looked carefully. He asked himself, "Has the boat moved? Has the river changed? Am I seeing clearly?" Years passed. Liang grew older. He became known in his village not as the man who lost a sword, but as the man who learned from losing one. Sometimes young people came to him for advice. One day a young farmer visited Liang. The farmer was upset because the rain had not come as expected. "My father always planted seeds on this exact day," the farmer said. "So I planted mine too." but now the ground is too dry, and the seeds may not grow. Liang listened quietly. Then he said, "Your father knew the weather of his time, but this year is different. The sky has changed, the soil has changed. Farming needs memory, but it also needs observation." The farmer lowered his head. "So I should not only follow the old date?" Liang smiled. "Respect the old wisdom, but look at today's field." Another time a merchant came to Liang. "I always sell my cloth in the Eastern market," the merchant said, "but fewer people come there now. Still, I go every week and wait. Why am I not successful?" Liang asked, "Where do the people go now?" "To the new Western market," the merchant answered. "Then perhaps your customers have moved, but your mind has not," Liang said gently. The merchant thought for a long time. Then he thanked Liang and left. And another time a mother came to him. "My son is growing up," she said. "When he was small, he listened to every word I said. Now he has his own thoughts. I keep speaking to him the same way, but he turns away from me." Liang looked kindly at her. "A child is also like a river," he said. "He is still your child, but he is not standing in the same place as before. To reach him, you may need to listen in a new way." The mother's eyes filled with tears. "I miss the little boy he used to be," she whispered. Liang nodded. "Love remembers the past, but wisdom meets the present." The mother held those words in her heart. Many years later, Liang told the story of the sword to the children of the village. They sat around him under a large tree while evening light softened the world around them. Liang said, "Once when I was young, I lost a sword in the river. I marked the boat, thinking I had marked the place where the sword had fallen." The children laughed. "But the boat moved," one child said. "Yes," Liang replied, "the boat moved." "And the river moved," said another child. "Yes," Liang said again, "the river moved too." A little boy asked, "Did you ever find the sword?" Liang smiled. "No," he said. "I never found that sword, but I found something more useful." "What did you find?" the children asked. Liang looked at the river in the distance. "I found wisdom," he said. "I learned that when life changes, we must change the way we look at life." The children became quiet. The evening wind moved through the leaves above them. Somewhere nearby, a bird sang its last song before night. Liang continued, "Remember this. A mark on a boat is not the same as the truth beneath the water. Sometimes we hold on to an old answer because it once made sense. But the world may have already moved. When that happens, we must open our eyes again." The children listened. The sky grew darker. The first star appeared, and the river kept flowing. Now, dear listener, as you rest tonight, perhaps this gentle old story can stay with you. Maybe there is something in your life that has changed. Maybe there is an old worry, an old memory, or an old way of thinking that you have been holding tightly. Maybe you have been marking the boat, hoping to find something that belongs to a different time. But tonight, you do not need to solve everything. You do not need to chase the lost sword. You can simply breathe. You can let the river flow. You can let the boat drift softly under the moonlight. And you can trust that tomorrow, with calm eyes and a peaceful heart, you will see things more clearly. The river moves. The boat moves. Life moves. And gently, slowly, we learn to move with it. So close your eyes now if you are ready. Imagine the quiet river. Imagine the moon shining on the water. Imagine a small wooden boat floating safely across the night. The air is cool. The stars are kind. The world is soft. And you are safe. Good night, dear listener. May your heart be light. May your mind be peaceful. And may your dreams flow gently like a river beneath the moon.